Good evening and welcome to the Kent County Board of Adjustment meeting for May 18th, 2023. And we are going to call the public hearing to order. When you're ready, would you call the roll?
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Miss Hudson? Here. Mr. Gallo?
Here.
Miss Denny?
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 7 present.
Thank you. We're all here. Will you introduce the staff, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Fensky. I'm one of the planners here at Kent County. I have to my left Mark Kennedy, our IT staff, and all the way to the right we have Mr. Fred Townsend, our legal counsel.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask that everyone rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Any additions or deletions for this evening?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. So when you're ready, will you introduce the public hearing?
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Fensky, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on the applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. If there is a group of interested citizens in favor or opposed to any of the applications, they may wish to elect one spokesperson among them to present testimony to the board. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time and that they speak clearly. Furthermore, there shall be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. As a courtesy to other participants in this hearing, a maximum of 5 minutes will be allotted to any person who wishes to provide testimony. The chairperson of the board has the discretion to allow additional time if deemed to be necessary. Statements presented at the meeting are to be made from either of the podiums at the front of the room, and for the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be included in the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. The legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by staff. The board will then receive testimony from those in favor of the application, followed by testimony of those opposed. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had an opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during the business meeting following the public hearing. However, you are not required to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call the Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471 or check the Kent County Planning Department website to learn of the board's ruling. All applicants will receive written notification of the approved. You are welcome, if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep this decision in your records for both you and all future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on April 30th in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of the nature of the applications. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a statement by council, the purpose of which is to help those who are going to give testimony this evening an opportunity to understand what is appropriate testimony before this particular body. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Ms. Denny. The standards for the granting of area variances were set forth by the Delaware Supreme Court in the case known as Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty. The standard applied to area variances considers whether a literal interpretation of zoning regulations results in exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. In order to determine whether the exceptional practical difficulty test is met, the board must weigh the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and uses in the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And lastly, whether failure to remove the restrictions would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This factor is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Note that the inability to improve one's business or stay competitive as a result of area limitations may qualify as a legitimate exceptional practical difficulty. And it is here also where the board considers whether the applicant is seeking more than is minimally necessary to relieve the asserted difficulty. In general, the board is not permitted to consider factors other than the 4 I've listed. So those speaking both in support of and in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing directly on the 4 factors, which restated briefly are 1, the zoning district, 2, the character of the immediate vicinity, 3rd, the neighboring properties, the effect on neighboring properties, and 4, whether the applicant faces an exceptional practical difficulty of ownership. In particular, the presenters are instructed to exclude from their presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board is both unable and unauthorized to resolve those disputes. Presenters must limit their remarks to those issues the board can decide. Ms. Denny, that concludes my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. So when you're ready, let's begin the public hearing.
Okay, first we have application A-23-12 for Marydale Volunteer Fire Company in Marydale, Delaware. The present zoning district is RS1, single-family residential. Proposed variance is a variance from the 30% maximum impervious surface coverage to construct an EMS building. Present use is firehouse. Proposed the same with an EMS building. It's in the Levy Court District 4th for Mr. Scott. Located on the east side of Firehouse Lane, the west side of East Street, approximately 260 feet south of Strauss Avenue, and southwest of Hartley. You will see here that the existing total property area is 2.152 acres. The permitted impervious is 30%, which is 0.64 acres. The existing impervious coverage is 1.14 acres for 53%. They are proposing an additional 0.27 acres of impervious coverage, which will create a proposed total impervious coverage of 1.41 acres, equaling 65%. This is looking down the road, the other direction, at the parking lot. You'll see there the firehouse building. Behind this mound here is kind of where the proposed building is going. Kind of back there behind the dumpsters, I believe. This is looking at it from the other front property line. And down the road. Again at the parking lot and the existing building. And the aerial. All right, so if someone would like to come forward, state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Minnick from Minnick Engineering, and I'm here to, representing this application.
Mr. Minnick, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
My address is 868 Greenwood Road, Greenwood, Delaware. And I'm here representing Mr. States and the volunteer fire company of Marydale. They recently, well, not recently, it's been a couple of years. Time goes quicker than you think, but within the last couple of years, they purchased the vacant parcel that you could see kind of on that flag portion of that yellow triangle, well, not triangle, but square area there.
Mr.
They
Minnick,
purchased that.
you can use that black screen there and you could point on it.
Okay. I don't know how to use this. With your finger. But anyway, they purchased the vacant parcel there and in the hopes of creating and building their EMS building. So I did a lot line adjustment and added that parcel to their existing firehouse building, which took a little bit of time. And so we did that portion of it. They are going to redo the septic system that's out there, so they'll be getting rid of the sand mound that's out there. And when they do that, that'll make some room to do the EMS building, which is the ultimate goal that they hired me for. So they're already starting at a deficit for the impervious surface. The impervious surface maximum for that zoning district is 30%, and they're already starting at 53%. So obviously anything you do to the combined parcels is going to be over the maximum impervious surface. So I think it is a practical difficulty in that sense, and I mean it's for the public safety, health, and welfare. So we're here tonight to ask for relief from that portion of the area requirements. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Let's have one. So KCD, looks like I have a note here that KCD has no objections to the maximum impervious coverage for that lot. Is that correct?
The 30%, is that what you're asking? I'm
No,
sorry.
I think KCD it says has no objections related to the maximum impervious coverage variance to the 60%. So I'm
The
guessing
65%, it was the
65%,
maximum with this new building on it, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
so I
an
was-
additional 12% of impervious surface, or almost 0.3 acres, a little over a quarter of an acre.
Thank you. So yeah, if KCD approved it, obviously there's no
Yeah.
any drainage
So it would be
issues with the
going-
site.
Basically, what you would be doing is approving the 53% and giving an additional 12%. So it's not like you're given, 30% minus 60. It's not like you're given 40%. You're given 12% additional above and beyond what's already existing as impervious surface on the lot.
Anybody?
We did staff reached out to KCD and they had no objection.
Oh, good. Thank you for that. Anybody else? I guess that's it. Thank you.
I did have one, real quick.
Sorry.
There's a comment from the staff about a tax ditch on the south of the parcel that aids in talks about the distribution of the water. Do you know anything about that tax ditch?
The tax ditch that's there on the south,
Yes.
do you have any comments on that, or can you explain to them any benefits of that?
The tax ditch where the portion of the parking is actually on that tax ditch, it's actually shown on the maps as a street right away. And I believe you are still working on, when we spoke with DelDOT said, we have no rights to that. They looked into it. They have no rights to that street right away. So they're basically going to sell that street right away to the firehouse, which contains, the majority of that tax ditch too. So
Are
So
you,
I don't know if that was what your question was.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
for that tax ditch, are you aware of any flooding on the property?
No.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone in favor of this application? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing no one and no one online, we will go ahead and close the public hearing for application A-23-12. Next, we have application A-23-13. Is there someone present for this application? Thank you. So this is for, the applicant is Warfel Construction Company. The owner is Mr. and Mrs. Aiken. Present zoning district is AR, Agriculture Residential. The proposed variance is a variance from the required 25-foot front setback for a lot that does not have state-maintained road frontage to allow for the construction of a single-family dwelling. Present use is vacant. Proposed is single-family dwelling. Levy Court District 4th for Mr. Scott. Located on both sides of South Big Stone Beach Drive, approximately 550 feet south of Big Stone Beach Road, northeast of Milford. Here you will see the proposed dwelling that they are proposing on the property, proposed to be 15.2 feet from Big Stone Drive private road. The front setback is a required front setback of 25 feet from where they take access. Looking at the property from the private road, down it, and in the other direction. This is looking down from farther down the road, looking towards the property on the right. Looking at the adjacent properties. Again at the property. This is across the private road, still on the subject parcel. And the aerial. So if you would like to come forward, state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
My name is Weston Yutzi. Address is 6800 Shawnee Road in Milford, Delaware.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth,
Yes.
and nothing but the truth?
So as shown on the pictures, what we're looking for is relief on the front setback to move the house away from the high tide water line. We've designed the home to fit within the DNREC four-step process, which would allow it to actually sit down at the high tide water line directly on the beach. And we're simply asking to move it towards the street to give it relief from being set literally in the edge of the water, to protect the beach area, but also protect the final project when we finish building the home. If you go to the house just to the north, there's a corner of that property that's 5.1 feet off the front setback. So we're not asking for anything that anybody else doesn't have, and I don't see any issue with it impacting any of the other properties adjacent or flow of traffic down the South Big Stone Beach Drive.
Anybody else? Sure.
What is the significance of the DNREC building line?
The DNREC building line is the building line that the shoreline, watershed stewardship, shoreline and waterway management defines on the Delaware coast, that you can't build past it. If you have properties such as this property where you can see the DNREC building line is about 25 feet into the property, very similar to the setback line. If you build on the water side of that line, you have to get special approval from DNREC to do that. They have a four-step process that you have to go through to build on the other side of that line, which takes into account the average square footage over the building line of the adjacent properties. And then they give you a square footage you're allowed to build within. And that allows you to go down to the high tide water line is the overall max you can go towards the water. So we had survey work done. I think we submitted all of that shows what the average 3 houses to the north and 1 to the south were over the line to come up with the average square footage. So the house we've designed is 1,434 square feet, I believe, to stay within that to be approved by DENREC.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone in favor of this application? Is there anyone opposed of this application? Seeing no one online, no one in the room raising their hands, we will go ahead and close the public hearing for application A-23-13. Next, we have application A-23-14 for B&T Group, K2 Towers 3, LLC. Present zoning district is AC, Agriculture Conservation. Proposed variance is variances from the requirement that the tower will be 200 feet from all property lines and 500 feet from any dwelling located on an adjoining parcel to replace an existing tower with a newer tower. Present use is cell tower. Proposed use is same with a newer tower replacing the old tower. It's in the Levy Court District 4th for Mr. Scott, located on the north of Midstate Road, 100 feet west of Weatherstone Lane, west of Frederica. Here you will see the proposed tower. They are proposing to be 41 feet from the northern property line and 342 feet to the closest dwelling. This is the existing conditions. They're 75 feet to the closest property line and 311 feet to the closest dwelling on an adjacent property. This is looking down the road. Again, in the other direction. This is looking back on the site towards the dirt road going back towards the tower. And back. This is just looking around the site at the guidelines. This is the nearest dwelling on an adjacent parcel. Looking at the existing tower that they are replacing. And the aerial. All right. I believe Mr. Pardee is speaking on behalf.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, John Pardee with the law firm Baird Mandalis, Brockstedt, Federica, and Cardia. And with me tonight is James McNichol, who is the project manager for BT, and he's available to answer any questions you may have. As an attorney, I don't believe I need to be sworn, but so if it's okay, Madam Chair, I'll just proceed with our PowerPoint. And Jamie, am I able to? No? Okay. So I'll just ask you to go to the next slide, please. So this is a couple photographs of the current tower. The next slide will show you, this is not the actual new tower, but this is what the new tower would look like. This is kind of the state of the art for the industry. One thing I'll point out, you may have seen in the photographs that were in the staff report, there are 3 guide wires that extend off the existing tower, and they're a bit annoying because they cover a lot of territory and represent a bit of a hazard. Those will disappear with this new tower. Next slide. So the staff report actually does a better job of this than my exhibits do, so I apologize. But what this is typically called a drop and swap in the industry. Whenever you're updating an obsolete older tower and replacing it with a new one, you don't want to have an interruption in service, right? So they typically will build a new tower next to the existing tower first so that the service can be continuous and, switch on day one, and then they take the old tower down. And that's what we're proposing to do here. But the real point of the story tonight is that this existing tower is going to be moved farther away from any of the residences out there. So on this photograph that you see, the tower will be moved closer to the rear line, and behind us is all farmland, so there aren't any houses back there. but it will be moved farther away from all of the neighboring residences. And so the next slide shows that with the measurements that are reflected in the staff report. So if you can consult exhibits B and C in the staff report, it shows you the same thing. We're replacing an older obsolete tower with a new state-of-the-art tower. It will provide much better, more efficient communication technology for the entire service area, and it's going to be farther away from the existing residences. Next slide. I don't need to tell this board what the standard for an area variance is. Your distinguished legal counsel explained that earlier. Next slide. The legal test, which Mr. Townsend indicated, is practical difficulty, and the test is whether or not the harm to the applicant, if the variance is denied, will be greater than the probable effect on neighboring properties if the variance is granted. And here, as I mentioned earlier, we're moving this existing tower farther away, so it's actually a benefit. That's why you don't have any, I would submit, that's why you don't have any objections from the neighbors tonight, because they're making the existing condition better by moving the tower farther away. Next slide. And I explain that here why this application satisfies the legal test. The inability to replace the existing communications tower with a new state-of-the-art tower would result in an exceptional practical difficulty, not only for the applicant, but also for all of the people that benefit from the communication tower service that it provides. The harm to the applicant, if the variance is denied, would be much greater than any probable effect on the neighboring properties. As I mentioned, granting the variance allows the tower to move farther away from them, and this application is consistent with the nature of the zone in which the property lies and the character of the immediate vicinity. Next slide. So quickly, the conclusion is that we respectfully request you grant the requested variance because the application satisfies the exceptional practical difficulty test. That is, the harm to the applicant if the requested variance is denied is much greater than any probable effect on neighboring properties if the requested variance is granted. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and as I mentioned, Mr. McNichol is here if you have any technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, I have one. There's a comment about new equipment required for new technology. Can you give me an example of what type of new technology that might be?
If it's okay, I'd ask Mr. McNichol to explain that. I know about this much about communications tower technology, but he's the expert, so he can explain it. Thank you.
Okay, he has to be sworn.
I'm sorry, yeah, sorry.
So, Mr. McNichols, I will ask you to pull that microphone a little closer to your face. And do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. So just the short answer to the question there is the technology that particularly the cell carriers use, but also the other tenants on the tower, changes all the time, constantly. When new technology comes out, it requires equipment changes on the tower itself. And we typically come back to you guys as building department to run through a process to get that done. When you get a tower that's outdated, structurally, it won't hold the new stuff that needs to come in. So it ends up being held at this point. It can't move forward because we can't add anything else to it. We can't, make it any better. So there's lots of different names for the technology, but you guys see it in the marketing all the time when you come out with, 4G, then 5G. That's really what it amounts to, but physically on the ground, it amounts to, antennas being added to the tower and taken off the tower over time, and you want a good solid tower to be able to do that with.
Just a follow-up question then. Is fiber optic on that tower?
There is fiber optic at that site. Yes.
To what extent would that be?
I can't tell who all's using it, looking at it from the outside, but I would tell you that any cell carrier that's on the site has a fiber feed running to their site, operating it. There is a radio station there's an FM station on that tower as well, and I don't know if they use it or not, but certainly all the cell carriers do. Yeah.
So if you had to give me an estimate of how many cell carriers are on that tower, do you have a ballpark number?
I think there's currently one on there. But give me 1 second, I can tell you for sure. Look at your picture. I'm sorry, there's two. There's two up there right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and there's also, like I said, there's an FM radio station up there as well right now, so.
How long has the existing tower been standing?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's been there a very long time. That was a four-legged self-support tower that we don't build anymore. You guys will notice when you look at the plans that the old one has 4 sides. The new one's gonna have 3. That's a change that, you know, for 25 years, I've been building the towers. We've been doing them with 3 sides, so it's older than that. And I know also that tower's been modified a couple times over the years, you know, and now I think we're just getting past the ability to modify it, and we need to just replace it, you know.
If I may supplement to Mr. Cusick's question, as I recall, the county's communications tower ordinance was adopted sometime between 1995 and 2001, and this tower obviously did not comply with its pre-existing non-conforming use, so it had to have been probably before 1995.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I had just one more. Is there another tower near or in the proximity where you are? And if it is, do you know how far it is from you?
I know there's several out there. I drove around that today looking. I saw several as I was driving in, but I don't think there's any within what we would consider the service area for that tower, which would be, you know, 2 or 3 miles in any direction.
So you don't think there will be any possible interference from another tower to yours if you're expanding yours? Or
There would not be, and it wouldn't be even if they were 500 feet apart. It still wouldn't be. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I will ask, I'm assuming that the prior applicant who owns property on Big Stone Beach is not going to benefit from this new tower? You were here, you saw the picture of Big Stone Beach. I was just curious as to whether or not they could expect any better coverage than they currently
I'm assuming
have.
it's nowhere near where my site is, right? Okay, fair enough.
Nice try. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Steve Robbins, and my address is 539 Robbins Road, Frederica, Delaware.
Mr. Robbins, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm not necessarily here tonight to be against this, but I feel like I need to be on the record because I have an adjacent piece of property that's very close to where their footprint is. If you look at the 2 black lines to the left of the
Do we have a
tower,
laser so he can point it? Do we have the laser thing? No? Oh, okay.
We're having
No,
technical
I just meant
difficulties.
the one we used to point. Okay. All right, go ahead.
if you look at the tower and you see those 2 black lines that run, that's right. That piece of property belongs to me. I own a farm that's, if you see those 2 buildings up kind of to the left, right there, the property, the open field above that is my farm. And that right of way goes from Route 12 all the way to my property. And right where that arrow is now, or move that arrow to the right, on the other side of those trees, that area right there, we have a lease agreement with a solar company to build a 30-acre solar panel array on that piece of our property on our farm. And for them to get their power, for the solar company to have access to that solar array, and for them to get their power out to Route 12 where there's a 3-phase line is what they have to tie into. You can see Route 12 Mid-State Road running to left to right below the yellow diagram. That right-of-way to the left of their tower is the access that the solar company that we have a lease agreement with for 40 years to run a power out from our farm to tie into the three-phase line that runs on Route 12. That's how they're going to get their power out. And they need that road to maintain and access the solar array. And as I said earlier, I'm not here opposed to anything these gentlemen are trying to do. I just need to be on record that if they infringe on that right-of-way, then they're going to keep us from doing what we already have an agreement with a solar power company to do. Now, right now, their guy wires, if you, and I measured it, if you measure from the anchors where the guy wires are, and they say they don't need guy wires anymore, but if you measure from the anchor where their guy wires, you can actually see a little speck there where you see that 108 number. Just to the left, that little speck right there, that's the anchor in the ground that holds the guy wire. It's 35 feet from my right-of-way. And there's another anchor on the top of that, on the north side, that's 35 feet from my right-of-way. Now, if they move their tower up to the north, if they come any closer this way, they're going to get real close to my right-of-way, and that's not going to work. So if they're building a bigger tower and they need a bigger fenced-in enclosure, I don't know what that footprint looks like, but I kind of need to know what that footprint looks like because I really can't have them infringing on my right-of-way because that would keep us from doing our solar array, which I already have an agreement with a solar company for 40 years.
Sir, when you say infringe on your right-of-way, do you mean you can't have that tower located over any part of your right-of-way, or are you worried about something else?
I need to be able to access that right-of-way. I need to be able to use that right-of-way, whatever that right-of-way is, that 15 or 20 feet, whatever a right-of-way is. I need to be able to access that right-of-way. I need to be able to drive big trucks down that road. There needs to be a power line run down that road. So, you know, if they're fenced, if they're building a bigger footprint, if they're building a bigger tower, let's just say their tower extends 20 feet bigger than what their enclosure already is, that puts them really close to my edge of my right-of-way. Now, I don't care if they get right up to it, but if they get on my road and I can't use that road, then that infringes on my ability to take care of my business.
So the guide wires, the anchors for the guide wires don't currently infringe upon
They do not currently infringe on my property. They're 35 feet from the edge of my right-of-way. And that's fine. I got no problem with that.
I'm just trying to explore this a little bit for the record, and I think
If
we're probably going to give a chance for the applicant
If
to
you
answer
can-
some of your questions.
If you can imagine this tower is, 100 feet, and the guy wires go almost up to the top, and they come out at an angle like this. And when they hit the ground, they're 35 feet from my right-of-way. Now, they say they're not going to use guy wires. Well, that would eliminate that process. Well, maybe we don't need to be concerned about that. But my concern now is if they're building a bigger tower, apparently it's going to have a bigger footprint. And
Yeah,
even though they're moving it to the north, they're not moving it any further away from my right-of-way.
Yeah, they are, actually. I'm looking at the plan now. So the tower looks like it's about the same size as the existing one.
Oh, I'm sorry?
The new tower is about the same size as the existing one, say 30 by 25 feet. And it's three-sided, no guide wires, and it's actually going.
I don't see any of the information you're talking about.
Do you have the drawings, all these? Do you have the B&T drawings that were in the package?
We're looking at C1, 2, is that?
Yeah, C1.2.
C1, 1.2.
I can, excuse me, just for one second.
Absolutely. Please don't hesitate to ask questions.
I'm sorry?
Please don't hesitate to ask questions. We
Okay,
want you to
I just wanted to
understand.
ask this gentleman here a question. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Can you show me on here, where's the old tower? This is right here. The old tower right here? And the new tower is...
Pausing, yeah. We're taking just a little minute to let them confer.
Okay. I have no issue with what these guys are going to try to do, unless their plans change for whatever reason. I mean, you know, maybe they get out there and they find oil, you know, over here.
Then you'll be rich
60
too.
feet away, and they want to, you know, they want to kind of get away from that so they can drill. But I have no issues with these gentlemen and what they're trying to do. More power to them. As long as their footprint, which they just showed me, is going to be a little bit further away, and there's not going to be any guide wires. I didn't know any of this when I came in here. That's why I'm
Sure.
here. If in fact what they're telling me right now is true, I have no issues. But I just want to be on the record that if anything changes, then I might have a problem. If for some reason they have to move this footprint, I need to know about it because it affects a business deal and 40 years of solar power going into the future. It's something I would need to know about. But I take these gentlemen at their word. But like I said, I didn't know any of this when I walked in here. I'm more enlightened now than I was. And if everything stays like it is on this paper, I have no issues.
Yep, all valid points, and they will be required to build to those drawings, so.
Okay.
And if there should be a change, they would end up back before the county again.
Okay.
And obviously, you were notified for this meeting because of the proximity of your property and your right-of-way. So you would be notified again.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to say? Mr.
Yes, I have a question. Is your property on 12 east of 13 or 12 west of 13?
It's on 12 east of 13. My property is about halfway between Frederica and Felton. It's almost dead halfway between. If you go to 12, if you go down 13, you turn left at Felton and you're going towards Frederica. I'm about halfway in between the two of them.
If you don't mind me asking, who will your solar provider be, if you can?
Solar provider is Borrego Solar.
They're a company that acquires property for a solar company later on to come in to erect its facilities.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So we have a lease agreement with this company, and they will come in and they'll hire contractors to come in and build the solar thing, and probably once the solar array is built, they might sell it to somebody else to manage it and maintain it. But right now, the company that we deal with is Borrego, and like this gentleman said, you know, they're a company that acquires property and makes the deals that makes these kind of things happen. They won't necessarily be the end owner of it, but, you know, that's neither here or there. I mean, things get bought and sold all the time.
I just had a question. Do you have any idea what KW that solar array will be when it's
I think it's
complete?
going to be about 4
kW?
4, or maybe 4.5, something like that.
Total completion.
Yeah, it's going to be somewhere between 25 and 30 acres. So it's probably going to be 4.5, something like that.
So, just so you know, that you'll have to go through all the county rules and regulations with regard to that when the time comes.
Everything is going to be taken care of by this company and us and my family. We're doing everything by the book.
Okay.
Yeah. The company gets all the permits, makes all the arrangements, and then, you know, they open it up to whatever. I mean, they're a well-heeled company. They've been doing this for a long time. They know how to open these things up, and they know how to get all the proper permits and regulations.
Okay, just as long as they go through the appropriate steps.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
For the record, you referred to this right to travel in the vicinity of this project as a right-of-way. It's not a right to travel over the property or the parcel where this tower is being erected. It's a right to travel over the adjacent property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so your right to travel in that area doesn't include any right to travel over their parcel?
I have no business to be on their parcel.
And vice versa, right?
And vice versa. I don't
Right.
care. I don't care. As long as their footprint is not, I mean, as long as there's no regulation that they have to be, you know, 50 feet from my piece of property, I mean, I don't care. They could be 20 feet away from it. As long as I can get my trucks down there, and as long as the power company or the solar company can run their power line back out to Route 12 along that right-of-way, because they got to get power out to Route 12 because that's where the three-phase line is they got to tie into. So as long as these guys have no problem with me driving down that road next to their tower, I got no problem with them building a tower next to my road.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-23-14.
Thank you. So at this point, we haven't even been here an hour. Does anybody need a break, or should we just open the business meeting and keep on going? Okay, so I'm calling the business meeting to order. And just, even though we have not left for housekeeping, will you just call the roll again?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Gallo?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Ms. Denny?
Here.
That's 7 still present.
Thank you. Okay, so first order of business would be the minutes from the April 20th, 2023 meeting. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the business meeting minutes for the April 20th, 2023 Board of Adjustment meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Anybody abstaining?
Abstain.
Thank you. So we have unanimous votes with the exception of one abstaining. Second order of business is, I need a motion for notice of decisions for Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the notices of decision for the April 20th, 2023 meeting for cases A2303, 07, 08, 09, 010, and 011.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any, okay, Mr. Gallo abstains. So, having unanimous all but one, they're approved. Any old business? None.
No, ma'am.
New business is just deliberation on our applications this evening.
Yes, ma'am. So going in order of those still present, we have application A-23-13. They are seeking a variance from the required 25-foot front setback for a lot that does not have state-maintained road frontage to allow for the construction of a single-family dwelling. They are proposing the home to be 15.2 feet from that private road.
Any thoughts or discussion, comments?
I'll make a motion, we approve application A-23-13 as requested based on the staff recommendations and the testimony tonight, and no opposition.
Second.
Motion a second. When you're ready, call the roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jones?
I'll vote in favor based on Mr. Carter's comments, his motion.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-13 based upon the fact that it is not out of character of the surrounding area if we grant this variance.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes in support of application A23-13 per staff recommendation, and then fits within the character of the immediate vicinity, and would not seriously affect the neighboring properties, as well as the hardship not granting the setback that the applicant won't be able to build this dwelling.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
Vote in approval for the reasons that the variance granted will be a net positive for the community.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-2313, I vote to approve based off the staff recommendation, public testimony that we heard tonight, and I believe that this variance would be in characteristic for the surrounding neighboring area, and it does not seriously negatively impact neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I'll vote in favor of my motion for the reasons I stated in my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. Oftentimes, these properties that are sort of have the boundary with the Delaware Bay are unique, each in and of itself, and also being governed mostly by DNREC as to what their buildable footprint is. This is the best option, is for us to grant this variance for this particular property. Not setting a precedence, because as we know, they're all a little bit different, each of them.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 7 in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Having received unanimous positive votes, application A-2313 is hereby approved.
Next, we have application A-23-14 for B&T Group. They are seeking a variance from the requirement that the tower will be 200 feet from all property lines and 500 feet from any dwelling located on an adjoining parcel to replace an existing tower with a new tower. And again, they are seeking to be 41 feet from the closest property line, 103 feet from the eastern, 116 feet from the western, 138 from the southern, And then the closest adjacent property will be 342 feet.
Any comments, discussion? Well, I have a comment. Obviously, this tower needs to be replaced. I think they are, the applicant is doing essentially what you would expect. They're putting it as close as they can to the same proximity where it was. And really, the replacement is essential because, as given in testimony this evening, you know, with the advancement of the different things that they put on these towers, and the weight of them, it's necessary that this be replaced. So I just wanted to comment on that.
I'll make a motion to approve application A23-14 per staff recommendation, as well as the fits all four criterias here. It fits within the immediate vicinity. Obviously, they're replacing the existing tower that's been there since, per the testimony, before 95, with a new tower, and then would not affect the neighboring properties as it's getting further away than what the existing tower is, and then the unnecessary hardship for the applicant to be able to improve the telecommunications site.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-14 for two reasons. First, they need to make these improvements to add technologies to this new tower. And second, this new tower will be further away from any near neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I'll vote yes on the motion for A23-14 based on the staff recommendation and testimony tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'll vote in support of the application A-23-14 based on the staff recommendations and the testimony that was presented tonight. Agree with Mr. Jenkins in that improvements need to be made to the existing tower, and I think overall it's going to be a better tower. In favor of.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I vote in support of the application as it's minimal changes from the present site, and it allows that business to remain competitive.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
For A-2314, I vote yes, based off staff recommendation and the public testimony we heard tonight. And I believe that upgrading the tower would be good for the area and doesn't change the characteristic or the use of the area.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you. And Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. Definitely, this is a necessity in order to keep up with the technology. We did have a neighboring property owner speak this evening with regard to a right-of-way, and during that testimony and conversation, I believe that it was settled that it appears to be okay, satisfactory. Again, this is a unique application for a unique property, so I vote yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 7 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application 2314 is hereby approved.
Okay, next we have application A-23-12 from Marydale Volunteer Fire Company. The proposed variance is a variance from the 30% maximum impervious surface coverage to construct an EMS building. They are requesting a variance to permit 65% impervious coverage.
Any thoughts, comments, discussion, or a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve application A-23-12 with two things. First, to legalize the existing impervious surface of 53% and to approve the requested increase to 65% based on the testimony tonight.
Second.
Do we have a motion and second when you're ready?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
For A-2312, I vote in favor of the motion. Based off the staff recommendation, public testimony that we heard tonight, I believe the nature of the zone doesn't change and it stays within character and use of the area.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I vote in support of application A-23-12, based on the motion, based on the staff recommendation, and based on the testimony that was given tonight. I think it's a benefit for the community, and I too am going to approve the existing conditions and also approve the variance that's coming through tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I'll vote in favor of the application for the staff recommendations and the overall benefit to the community.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A-23-12, based upon the fact that it is in the public safety that this building be erected.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes per staff recommendation. Then also the public safety buildings, it's appropriate to be located in this zone for the area they serve. And then adding the EMS building is a normal improvement to this site.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes based on the reasons made in my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes to approve application 2312. I think in light of the fact that this is an EMS building, and as stated by the staff, fire companies inherently have greater impervious surface coverage needs than typical residential uses, and this expansion to this EMS building is a necessity, and so so that in and of itself is a unique practical difficulty that's faced by most fire companies. So yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 7 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A-2312 is hereby approved. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, record time. 1 hour, 3 minutes. We all ought to be buying lottery tickets tonight.
Jamie?